Hi, I'm Alexis Shepperd, and I'm here with Shana James. And we have both been coaching men and women for almost 20 years to have amazing relationships and amazing sex. And we're here right now to talk about your most pressing questions about sex. And today we want to talk about how to become an amazing lover and what women really want. And from our experience working with a lot of men, what men really want in that department and what it means for you as a man to become an amazing lover.
I
So
love,
what first comes up for you when I say that?
yeah, I love this topic because I think it can be so unexpected. So many men come to me and think, I want to know like the right position or the right thing to do, the right way to touch her or hold her. And when I think about who the men are who've been the most amazing lovers in my life, it's so much about willingness, attunement, and welcoming all of me. I'm thinking about moments where I've been feisty and pissed off, and where a man has been able to be like, great, like growl and be a panther, and, or moments where I'm crying and sad, and that part is welcomed. And where a man can, I'm just giving like total overview, right? But we can go more into this, but, where a man can actually feel into my sensations as I open or close, and he can be attuned to that, and we can be in this, such a dance together. And so
Let's slow it down because those three things that you said they're so rich and so important. So you said willingness, attunement,
and
and welcoming.
that was just off the top of my head, so you can
Yeah.
add ones or
Let's even just go into those because those are so juicy. So you started with a welcoming part, and that's just like inviting whatever is already happening. When I feel accepted, and when I feel like he actually wants to know how I am. And again, this isn't like room for me to, or for anybody's partner to attack them or be awful, but to like welcome whatever you're feeling. So when a man welcomes my stress, or that sometimes I'm just frustrated and I don't know what to do with it, and then if he's like, yeah, bring it to me, and then that can turn into such fun sex, because then I can be like, it can just be frustrated, or I can even like get all my complaining out. But I've taken my frustration, I've been like, what do I want to do? Like, actually I want to like grab at you and quiet you, and that has turned into some really hot sex.
yes.
Or sadness, if I'm feeling sad or down, I mean, just whatever it is, I know we both feel this way, has made such a difference. So that's what we mean by like welcoming, like that I know that there's a room for me to be myself, that nothing is a block to sex, and that he actually wants to know, and he actually wants me to bring it out more. And
I love that statement. Nothing is a block to sex. And I just think I've given an example in another one where I was really sad, and my partner stopped me in the middle of sex, and we just slowed down, and I cried. And somehow I'm just having this image of, I don't even know if this has happened to me or if this is just like a fantasy, but where a man says to me like, oh, sweetheart, I can, yes, like I get it. Or yes, you're sad, right? There's this, the way of welcoming where it's like, instead of what I got most of my life, which was like, oh, you'll be fine, or, it's okay. Like men trying to, and women too. My mom used to do this to me too, like trying to walk me out of some kind of feeling because it was uncomfortable for her, right? So like an amazing lover, you start to become, even if you're uncomfortable with her discomfort or her upset or frustration, you can start to actually relax that part of you that's uncomfortable, and start to make more room for whatever's there.
I think that's so good. So whether it is, if we're having any other feeling than being totally happy and turned on and ready for sex, like it can be easy to want to fix it, to dismiss it, to take it personally, to avoid us, you know, any of those things do not feel good. But what I
Yeah.
just think is all of this stuff is like life energy. And for the feminine, we're just like, honestly, if you want our juicy, turned on selves, you've got to make room for the full feminine storm.
Oh,
I'm like, oh, this is so good. I feel like we just made a little room for you right then in that moment.
I can feel it. I feel like the part of me that's, parenting and homeschooling and stressed out and fucking pissed off and, the ways that like the other day in my relationship where I just started growling, and a lot of women, right, they aren't going to just growl because Alexis and I have spent a lot of time making space, making room, taking workshops, doing tantra, like all these ways that we can, just let energy through and not hold on to it. Most women we know who haven't done this, they're still kind of contained and they're holding on and they're more afraid to surrender. They're more afraid to feel their feelings. But you as a man and as an amazing lover and partner, right? As you start to invite this, women start to actually soften. Now, I just want to also put in a point here that a lot of women might be afraid to go there, but the more welcoming you are and the more you're like, all right, babe, I don't know what's going to happen either, but I will be here with you no matter what, right? I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to check out. That makes it safe for a woman to start to feel more of these things.
Totally. When men go unconscious or numb or check out, the feminine, we either rage or we get frozen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you don't want your woman to be a cold bitch or a raging fiery bitch,
Or a cold crick.
show up. Exactly. Show up.
I remember years ago when I was with a man who, the beautiful part about it was he was able to like we could open emotionally together. And so we'd go to all these places. But I remember one time opening and feeling all this intensity. And then he was gone. And, that probably is going to happen too, because we all have our own trauma and our own limits where we check out. And so it's not to say that you never can, but I remember the rage that came up in me where I was just like, fuck you. Like you said you were going to be here for me and then you left. And I'm just thinking about that for you guys who this is new for, right? You might then face even more rage or more upset or more frozenness. And this is where the more you can continue to welcome, right? And you get support sometimes, right? Like we're here for you, Steve and Dan are here for you, where your own system freezes up or where you feel like, fuck no, I'm not going there, right? Those are places for you to also get support so that you can keep doing this dance together.
And I find that is so true for me. Even if I'm just a little disconnected, or there's been a little hurt or a little something, it may not even be big, but if we actually start to reconnect, I might not even want to at first. I'm like, no, I don't feel like it, or I don't even want to connect sexually or emotionally. I'd rather just watch TV or do my work or something like that. But if I can get through that and we start to connect, what I find is like, what comes up is any sort of pain about where we've been disconnected. So the frustration I didn't express or the hurt I didn't express, it feels like layers of an onion peeling or something thawing, and to just like stick with me as I go through that. And it's a function of trust too, that I'm not going to bring what's really going on with me if I don't really trust a man is going to be there.
Beautiful
But
point.
so if you actually, but then as I actually start to trust that you're there, then I'm going to be like, okay, well, actually my heart is aching right now. And I don't know, and then the stuff starts to come up. And if that's when you eject, I'm going to be like, honestly, fuck you. You want me to like take off my clothes and have some kind of hot sex for you, but the minute I get upset, you want to bolt or you collapse or take it personally. Like, if there's not room for me to feel everything I'm feeling, then there's no way I'm gonna. That's
Open.
not a, yeah, it's not a turn on in the slightest bit.
I can just feel as you say that, it's like, oh, right. It's so vulnerable. I think we, in this culture, I don't know, in the world, maybe it's like we kind of downplay how vulnerable it is to actually get naked with someone, to show our bodies, to have, especially for a woman, to have someone inside of our fucking body. Like, you enter into a woman, right? A woman is penetrated. It's so vulnerable. And then it's kind of like, I don't know, like, oh, whatever, sex, whatever. And yet, there's something kind of mind-blowing about that. Like, when we remember how vulnerable it is, somehow I think that makes it easier to recognize that all of these vulnerable feelings are going to arise, and that it's not personal, like you said before, right? It's not personal. If I trust you, I'm going to start to feel all the things that are in the way of me actually connecting with you. And I'm also just thinking, like, this must sound so weird to many men who are with women who don't express these things, but those are the women who tend to not surrender and open and have this full range of ecstatic, blissful, squirting, every kind of sex, right? It's like there is a correlation here.
It totally is. And this makes me think of an example I told you earlier, a non-sexual example of, I was talking to an old friend who was having trouble with his teenage daughter. And she would just either blow up or have these big meltdowns, it seemed like to him, over small things, over allowance and things like that.
Small things.
Yeah, I mean, what seemed like out of proportion, and some of that is just being a teenager, but after talking with him, he was like, what do you suggest? I'm like, well, given everything you're saying, what if you just invite more of it? So if she's like so upset about her, her allowance or whatever, just tell her, like, yeah, tell me, like, okay, you're mad. Tell me what else you're mad about. Give it all to me. Like, yell with her, or she's upset. Tell me everything that's horrible and awful, and like, just go there with her. He said he did that the next day with his teenage daughter, and she totally went there. And then afterwards, they had the most wonderful evening as a family. And she came and sat down next to him on the couch and curled up with him. And he said that that never happens like that. So it was like night and day. So it's just, in a way, it's kind of the nature of the feminine, like,
Yeah.
and that you can start to do that with a woman wherever she's at. And she might think that's really weird, but just to be like, yeah, okay, you're mad. Okay, tell me more.
Right. It doesn't have
Let's
to
start
be
like that.
a weird, ooey gooey thing. Yeah, tell me more. I want to know. I want to understand you. I want to, I want to be here with you. I think many women are dying for that.
They're dying for that. They're dying for that. So.
Also, I was just thinking as you were talking that what it leads me to another piece is, asking a woman what she wants. And many, many women have the experience of being in sexual situations where it's more about the man's pleasure. Now, I also know many men come to me who are pleasers and like they try to take care of women. Both of those situations, there's not a lot of discussion. There's not a lot of talking. There's not a lot of like, what would feel amazing to you? What would really allow your heart to relax or your body to relax? What kind of ways have you always wanted to be touched, but you've been too afraid to tell someone, right? Like, starting to get into that conversation of a woman's desire. Again, it might take her a little while. She might be like, I don't even know. A lot of the men I worked with, when they go ask their wives or partners this, they're like, she didn't know. And then we've got to kind of guide the conversation again. So I'm like, okay, so, when she doesn't know, you can let her know, well, maybe think about it this week and see what comes up for you. Or, okay, if you did know, what might it be? Or when you imagine me touching you like firmly versus really light, which one seems better? Giving some different examples. So all around this sense of, what does she actually want and what do you want, right? Starting to bring your own desires too can be super hot and powerful.
There's so much to say about that. I don't even know what to say. But this relates to the point about attunement. So sometimes we can just be attuned and notice like, oh, is she lighting up or is she closing? But sometimes we don't have to be mind readers, you know, and guys, you don't have to be mind readers. You can ask. And it can be, is in this way for all women, but you know, it took me years to feel comfortable asking for what I wanted or saying when I wanted something different. I
Okay.
didn't want to offend him. I didn't want it to be awkward. I didn't want him to feel like he had to do something he didn't want to do. God, I would have rather died. I would have rather just had
Yeah.
sex that wasn't that enjoyable than to ask for something and wonder if he felt obligated now. Because, I mean,
I
talk
still
about
still feel that way. It still happens, 40 something years after I was born and all of these workshops and therapy and courses and everything, it's still so hard to ask.
so, guys, I mean, anything that you can do to make it, to invite that out. It's part of attunement and it's part of welcoming. So it's like, just to be like, I want to know, do you like it like this? Or do you want it faster or slower? I mean, you don't have to ask questions all the time. This is just another tool for your tool belt to invite her to express herself more and to know that you don't have to figure out how to become an amazing lover all by yourself,
No, no.
that
And
she can help you.
totally. And it could be in the middle of sex. Like, I love what you're saying. It's not like you have to ask, like, okay, now faster, slower, harder, lighter, but like it could be in the middle where you notice the attunement, you notice like, oh, she's a little bit, she seemed really excited and she was opening. And then suddenly somehow the energy dropped. You can be like, okay, do you want something different? Or again, giving options, faster, slower. So I love that it's not like, yeah, you could ask anytime you want. And you're not really asking from a sense of like, I got to get it right, or, trying to be, I got to be the best lover I can be, but really asking from the sense of, oh, I want to know her and feel her and see how we together can actually create more pleasure for each other and more intimacy with each other.
And that so comes out even in the way you ask. So it might be like, do you want me to touch you here or here? Or do you want it faster? Do you like this? Like, am I doing okay? It's like, then I'm like, oh God, he feels anxious. He's just like wanting to play, like, this is not hot. This is not fun.
Yeah.
And it's very different to be like, oh, do you like it like this? Do you want it lighter? Do you want it faster?
I feel that already.
You
We're
can see like I,
in the room and right, and we're two women, and like, oh, my body's like, whoa, I just totally felt that.
it is how it is. I know it is. So guys, this is how the feminine works, if you can just feel what you're saying as you say it,
Yeah.
like if you can feel it, like, and what's coming out is I love you and I want you and I'm enjoying you so much right now, and like I'm asking this because I'm enjoying your pleasure so much, and I don't even care what you say next.
Mm. Yeah. I love that. And I just started to think about the attunement part too of, eventually you'll be able to feel her pleasure in your own body. If you can't now, right, that is a skill that you can cultivate where the more pleasure she's experiencing, the more you feel yourself opening and filling with, energy and light and spark and, whatever that is. And so the more you can attune to her and welcome what's happening for her, it's like this exponential thing where one person's pleasure becomes the other person's pleasure, and then everybody's getting to feel more and more and more.
It's the most fun.
So fun. Just thinking about willingness and going back to willingness and how, for me, having a lover who's like trained and who knows things, there's something great about that. But I've been with many men who, are great lovers, but they're not willing to get to know me and my body in that moment because they think that they've got these incredible skills. And like, I would so much rather be with someone who's willing to figure out together, what do we like? What do we want right now in this moment? What feels good to us? And okay, let's try and experiment and explore together. rather than someone who's like committed to a technique and, you know, I got this, I know what I'm doing, but isn't with me.
Yes. Yeah, the difference between like performing
Yeah.
and trying to wow her. Um,
Yeah.
I remember I had a lover at one point where there were times, I mean, mirrors can be great fun as a, you know, as some kinky thing to include, but there happened to be a mirror in the room where we would have sex, and I would sometimes like catch him looking in the mirror, and it wasn't at us having sex, and that's not, but the way he was doing it, I was like, oh, he's more caught up in the idea of how hot we are, and he isn't with me. So it wasn't the looking in the mirror itself, it was just like an example of, I mean, that didn't last very long, because I mean, the sexual activity was pleasurable,
Mhm.
but that can only go so far. It didn't like, you know, maybe it was kind of hot, maybe I had an orgasm, but like it just was like, it
So
left me feeling kind of hollow and empty, and yeah, that's it.
so different when it's just physical versus when we're actually, our hearts are connected, our bodies are connected. I know I say this all the time, but I'm just thinking about the difference between like having you look in the mirror and be like, hey, look over there, like here's what I love about what I see, or here's what feels so hot and amazing, versus like I could feel him looking from this like technical perspective, or this sense of like, yeah, that's hot, or yeah, I'm doing it, right? So different than look at us. Look at what we're doing together. Look how beautiful you are. Look at the way your, you know, your hip curves in this way. Or look at, you know, I was thinking about that before too, like being made to feel beautiful has helped me open in the moments where I'm like, oh, my belly's hanging out over here, or my breasts are sagging over here. And then I'm like, I don't really feel like having sex because I don't want you to see me. And when a
Yeah,
man
that's a huge
said,
one.
wow, you know, you're beautiful in these ways, and I love your body, and I love being with you, and I love the feel of you and your skin and all these things, it's like, oh, okay, then I can start to feel safe again to open.
Exactly. And for the men, I mean, this is like part of like how, okay, well, how do you figure it out together? You mentioned this before, like for the men, trusting your own desire. And maybe what you want in that moment is not exactly what I want, but who cares? Start with what you want. So there's attuning to her, but there's also like, if you're like, if you want to devour her, feel that. If, you know, if you want to be like gentle and slow with her in that moment, feel that. Like really let yourself like want it the way that you want it, and bring that energy, and just trust that. Trust the way your desire is coming up in the moment as you be with her.
Yeah.
And then see how she responds to it. And even if she shuts down, or she's like, oh, I don't know, or this is, you know, that still is not a block to sex. It just really is not a block to sex.
No,
Just
right,
welcome that. Welcome her shutdown.
exactly. Like, oh, something didn't feel good about that for you, or, you know, what was it? And, you know, it's like wanting what you want and feeling what you want without the attachment of this is exactly how it has to look, because it might transform, it will transform into something based on the two of you and where you're coming together and what you each want. And it may look completely different from what you first imagined, but it also starts with you letting yourself have a desire, have a want.
So hot. It's so hot when a man can bring his desire to me
Yeah,
fully in an embodied way. And at this point now, my body usually just responds to that.
totally, totally. All right, what can we tell them to do? What do we want them to do to practice and play? I just had one thought around touching. It's so different to be touched just like, you know, kind of absent-mindedly versus like putting all of your consciousness into your fingers and like touching a woman's body, whether it's just even coming up behind her and holding her neck, or touching her cheek, or touching her chest, or when you're in bed naked, touching somewhere on her body, but just like that you could actually start to play with. Part of being an amazing lover is playing with feeling, like truly, truly feeling her, you know, feeling her skin, feeling the temperature, feeling with your fingers, and then allowing your, what do you want to call it? Awareness, consciousness, whatever, right? Like that you're not just aware with your eyes or your ears, you're using your touch and your sensation to actually like infuse love and connection into her body.
Totally. I mean, another way to say it is, you know, I've had experiences a long time ago of, you know, of men, you know, maybe they want to pleasure me in some way and they want me to enjoy it, but then they want me to be ready for sex. And so then they touch me and they're like, okay, maybe if I rub her clit like this, or maybe if I do this, but it's like doing something mechanical, like I'm going to just try and do this to her body to get her turned on.
Yes.
I mean, and that can do something, that does something, but it's really different. So what you're saying, I mean, if guys don't have experience of this, just try this, like with guys with your fingertips. Like if you're touching her body, if you have your hands on her pussy or on her clit, notice what her clit feels like. See if you can just like notice all the sensations
On your own finger.
on your own finger and touch her in a way that feels good to you. See if you can actually like just notice it and like, how does it actually feel good to touch her down there? And that's not your only consideration, but it's very different than like, well, maybe if I go fast or do something like this, then it's going to be the mechanical thing that turns her on. Sex is so much more mysterious than that. But men who are like actually really enjoying the experience of touching me, I can feel that. So that's a great thing to practice. Whatever your next sexual encounter is, go and touch your partner. Like notice what her skin feels like, where it's warm, where it's cold, where it's smooth and soft. Like just notice, see if you can enjoy touching her.
And make your next sexual encounter. It doesn't have to be in the bedroom. It could just be like a hot moment where you're passing by and you touch her. You know, it could be a moment in the kitchen or a moment where you're on a walk together, right? It doesn't have to just be sex in the bedroom.
I love it. That's a great place to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you.